Here are some statistics. Britain experienced the highest number of inflation rates since the 1970s. 700,000 people failed their mortgage payment April this year. NHS has experienced the highest number of people on its waiting list since 1948 and the lowest customer satisfactions since its establishment, again in 1948. Back in the summer, some of the British market has to ration tomatoes and cucumbers, and fuel cost and energy cost went through the roof. Britain has never experienced this amount of food banks ever. They are proliferated all around every city of Britain. And it's experienced the highest number of immigrations, again, ever. What a tangled web they weave when they first practice to deceive. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Harry's Book Cafe. Today I would like to talk about James O'Brien's new book, How They Brick Britain. James O'Brien, by the way, for those of you who don't know him, he is the presenter for the LBC show between 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. every day, Monday to Friday. His program is the most popular talk show, commercial radio in this country. On average, he attracts about 1.5 million listeners per day. On Thursday, where the Mystery Hour was hosted, we're looking at 4 million listeners on a daily basis. So, absolutely amazing program. If you haven't heard it already, I would highly recommend you to have a listen. He's very sharp. I mean, intellectually knowledgeable, but knowledge is one thing, but the quick-wittedness is another. He's really quick. I used to listen to his program since the Brexit debate, and the way that he challenged the Brexiters, you have never heard it anywhere else, and it's all evidence-based, and it's just incredible. Anyway, he wrote 2 books previously. The first one is called How to Be Right, and the second one is more playfully dubbed How Not to Be Wrong. I read both of them, and they are very conversational. Many of the conversation was sort of copied from his most memorable interactions on his radio show. Very interesting. Now, How They Brick Britain is very different in the sense that it's much more densely packed. It's a lot less conversational. In fact, there's no conversations in it. Very rare that you see some of the conversations, but really rare. Whereas the previous ones, as I said, are much more conversational. This one reads like a non-fiction book. So in the book, he chronicles the mismanagement, the malfeasance, and the malpractice of those people in power, especially the Tory party. But the book is not only limited to those people in power, but also trying to extend its scope to those of the right-wing British media and sort of chronicle how they not only fail to hold those in power to account, but also in many ways involved actively in the damage done to Britain. The book is broke down into 10 chapters, and each is headed by an individual. The first 4 chapters are all about the media, the right-wing media, and the damage that they have done to this country. So the first chapter, no surprise there, is Murdoch and his international news corporation. I think under the news corporation we have the Sun and the media. I'm not sure about Daily Mail, but it was all about how those newspapers were sort of contributory factors to the damage of Britain, especially the Sun. The next chapter moves to Paul Dacre, who is the editor-in-chief for Daily Mail, and perhaps the worst culprit for the damage to this country. So if you cast your mind back, the headlines of Crash the Saboteurs, the enemy of the people, referring to the judges, those headlines really sort of resonate with 1930s Germany. That's something, that language that would be the Nazi who use language sort of like that, the enemy of the people. I mean, It keeps talking about family value, keep talking about how important British democracy is, and yet the headlines calls judges the enemy of the people. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Then it moves on to sort of lesser contributors to this, and we move on to the Sun, the Daily Telegraph. The following chapters are then sort of headed by politicians, and I don't think, with the exception of one name, I don't think you'll be surprised. So we got Boris Johnson, we got Dominic Cumming, we got Liz Truss, who also has the shortest chapter for no obvious reason here. Dominic Cumming, who else? I think the one that will surprise you, David Cameron. David Cameron was included in this chapter because of the austerity that he has inflicted on this country, but also blaming him for starting the Brexit referendum at the first place. I mean, he shouldn't. He's an idiot. But one of the arguments of Brexit was, we don't want an elected bureaucrat to rule our parliament. Well, now David Cameron is back. How is that working out for you guys, Brexiters? I think the only chapter that might surprise some people is the inclusion of Jeremy Corbyn. But there's actually shouldn't be any surprise. He was the worst Labour leader ever. He led the party to the biggest Labour defeat since 1938, if I remember correctly. He was a Brexiter, but he failed to come out and say so. And, he led absolutely no resistance to the Leave campaign as a Labour leader. Labour was completely absent. I mean, Cameron and Osborne was fighting a lonely battle by themselves. There's no Labour because he refused to stand on the same platform with David Cameron to campaign. I mean, come on. You need to cast your principles aside, because leaving Europe or staying in Europe is much, much bigger a matter than your silly principle of refusing to stand with conservative leaders. I mean, he's full of principles, but he never does anything. He promised all these things that is just unachievable. Anyway, that's pretty much all the people involved. He was reserving some really, really scathing criticisms for Boris Johnson. And again, no surprise there, because he was the worst Prime Minister ever. The lies that he spills is undiluted and unchecked. Very interesting observation he has detailed in the book, and that is the sort of sycophantic media market in this market, in Britain. Without those sycophantic sort of red-wing media populating the landscape of Britain, politicians like Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Dominic Cumming, Rishi Sunak, they couldn't possibly get away with what they are getting away. And precisely because of the media landscape that exists in this country today, those politicians were able to get away with their lies, and undiluted lies, unchecked lies by the journalists who were supposed to do their job but failed to do so. And The Guardian and O'Brien and some other journalists were fighting a sort of lonely battle here. And until those those hypocritical newspapers led by the Daily Mail and the Daily Telegraph, unless they have changed the way that they edit their newspapers and stop being client journalists, is unlikely to see how the political landscape will change anytime soon. And it's a depressing thought if you think about it. And if you look at what's happening in the last couple of days, I think O'Brien's book might have finished a little bit too early, with the sacking of Suella Braverman and the absolutely lunatic resignation letter that she sent. I think she really should have included Suella Braverman in one of his chapters, but his book finished in October, and simply not possible to foresee what's happening. But guys, that's the end of this review. I do hope you have you enjoyed it. Please, if you're interested in British politics, do buy this book. It is well written. It's a little bit long-winded at times, but is well written most of the time. And the most valuable thing for this particular book is the observation, the detailed observations through his job. And as I said in the beginning of the video, he's intellectually very, very sharp. And some of the things that he detailed here are, is something that I've never thought about. So if you're interested, please do buy this book. It is absolutely amazing. And as I said, I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I shall bring more contents like this very soon. Cheerio, guys.